Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, University Nutrition Professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Fitness Fridays. Hey, everybody. Today we have a story that ultimately comes from Health Day and from Reuters. I got these pieces through U.S. News and World Report, and they address our fitness topic that we have every week. Longtime listeners know that I have a couple degrees in exercise physiology, so this is always of interest. This is a story of younger people, finances, and the pandemic and what it's doing to fitness. Let's start with this first one. This is from Health Day, credited to Amy Norton. And we just want to take a look at this and set up a story with this. There's going to be a little critique here involved, of course, these two pieces. Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, brand new stuff. If you feel like the pandemic made you a permanent couch potato, a new study shows you're not alone. It says, on the whole, Americans' daily step count plummeted at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And based on new findings, people have not yet bounced back. So as of December of 2021, U.S. adults were still taking around 700 fewer steps per day. Now, if you say 2021, it's 2023 now. That's true. Remember, a lot of these data sets need looked at in sort of a consecutive way. So it's not always going to be stuff from literally the data was collected a month ago. But it looks like on the whole, Americans are taking 700 fewer steps per day. You might have heard recommendations in the past that we really should be getting 10,000 steps per day. But of course, that has a lot to do with your job and even your age and some other different subgroups that we're going to explore here. It says, this is a quote from Dr. Evan Britton, who's a heart disease specialist at Vanderbilt University. I believe he's an associate prof there. It was really surprising to see that kind of impact over a year and a half into the pandemic. So again, this drop from 7,800 steps per day to just 7,100 steps per day. Now again, that looks like the median number when you take the data set on the whole. Okay, so as you might guess, the step count tanked early in the pandemic. And again, I think the take-home message here is it remained depressed. This says, Britain noted the new study took a deeper look at the trend, right, this troubling trend, used data from more than 5,000 participants who wore Fitbit devices for at least 6 months before and after the pandemic. Now, this is where I think it starts to get interesting, and it'll open up our second news piece. Some groups were more affected than others. People who had lower incomes, for example, or were living in more deprived neighborhoods, took a bigger drop in daily steps. According to this senior researcher at Britain, lower income Americans were the most affected by the pandemic-related job losses. So that could be part of this. If you don't have money, you don't get a gym membership or pay for fitness in whatever way. Housing insecurity, there's lots of these economic stressors that were brought on by the pandemic. Looking at other subgroups here, younger adults typically had a significant and sustained drop in daily steps, whereas older adults held fairly steady. And they attribute this partly to many Americans that are younger working from home. Obviously, working from home is going to mean, not schlepping out to the car and up and down the stairs at work or whatever that might be. That's going to take a certain toll. If you're interested in a deeper dive on this, the findings were published in the March 20th JAMA Network Open. So Journal of the American Medical Association Network Open. Now let's go to our second piece here, which I think is curious. Fitness chains add financial muscle as more Americans hit the gym. This is the Reuters piece. This says, and again, this is by Deborah Mary Sophia from Reuters, tighter budgets may not be a constraint for Americans looking to get back into shape. Now, I think this is an interesting way to set this up because that's one explanation, but I'd like to think about alternate ones as well. Let's start with the facts. Some of the major players in the fitness sector have pushed the envelope on membership rates. That's the crux of the argument for me after the pandemic scare. And this has helped them to beef up their earnings where other industries are, of course, contracting. You're seeing big corporations with layoffs and that sort of thing. Meanwhile, Planet Fitness added 400,000 members in the fourth quarter, taking the total to about 17 million in 2022. So fourth quarter 2022, strong numbers from Planet Fitness. Now, this is where I think the crux of the argument may be, that Planet Fitness is cheap. So the hypothesis of this article seems to be that people are still spending on fitness when they're not spending on other things or tightening their belts. And that could be true. I would also think, though, that Planet Fitness is cheap. When I trained at a bodybuilding gym, Ma and Pa gym, local gym, I was spending about $40 a month. And now I spend 10. I'm going to Planet Fitness for the time being, and I'm one of those numbers. It's just, to me, again, it's the cheapness of it that I think could be driving this, not just that Americans are real excited about face-to-face fitness after the pandemic. Again, that might be true, and that's one of the things that are posited in the article. Some deeper dive numbers here. Visits to fitness chains jumped 30.6% for the week starting February 27th compared with 2019 levels. Again, so we're going back pre-pandemic. According to data from location analytics firm Placer.ai, which covers thousands of U.S. gym locations. The data also showed a 17.2% jump in visits for the same period compared to 2020, so mid-pandemic, if you will. And here's a quote for you. People that are working out slightly more than they did in the past. So even with the recessionary talks and layoffs you see, cancellations are just slightly better. Planet Fitness CEO Chris Rondo said at a JP Morgan conference last week. So again, the numbers are better despite the economic climate as we continue to slag into this pandemic as it becomes endemic. It says Gen Z's focus on fitness after being locked indoors during the COVID-19 crisis has also been a major driver. And I don't doubt that. But again, I think we should also consider the idea here that given both of these pieces, that the reason you see gym memberships up is because people haven't been moving at home. And frankly, it's worth about $10 a month to get back into the fitness centers. I myself have been wary about when I go to the gym. I like to go earlier in the morning when there's fewer people. I don't want to constantly re-expose myself to COVID and get it multiple times. I have a lot of colleagues and friends that have had COVID multiple times. I'd rather not get into that situation. So I go a little bit earlier when there's fewer people there. Ideally, there may only be 15 or 20 people. But the money is a big deal. I want to support the local Ma and Pa gyms way more than I want to support big corporate chains. But as I travel more, something like Planet Fitness is just a way to do that. You can train and shower and do whatever you need to do. And both my wife and I can do this for like $24 a month, right? Or individual memberships are around 10. So I think it's just the cheapness of it all. I don't think it's necessarily better. In fact, in many ways, it's worse than the gym I used to go to. But that's something that I would like everybody to sort of consider. Younger people, yes, they've been cooped up, but it's the cheapness of it. Maybe they're not at liberty to spend $40, $50 a month. And some of these huge corporate chains, and that speaks to a whole nother issue we might talk about in the future, is these huge corporations gobbling up all the little ones or driving them out of business. But it seems to be the wave of the future. And I suppose the good thing about all this is that the numbers are strong. Fitness numbers are strong, at least in these cheaper corporate facilities, people getting their butts moving again. Anyway, that's it for our fitness topic today, and we'll see you later. The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.